Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker attack Brock Lesnar. YouTube script: The impossible just happened and wrestling will never be the same again. Brock Lesnar, the Beast Incarnate, the Conqueror, the man who ended The Undertaker's streak, just got absolutely demolished by two younger superstars who proved that even gods can bleed. What we witnessed wasn't just an attack, it was the execution of a wrestling legend and the birth of two new monsters who just declared war on everything Brock Lesnar represents. If you think this was just another wrestling beatdown, you're living in a fantasy world that's about to come crashing down around you. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker didn't just attack Brock Lesnar, they destroyed the myth of invincibility that has surrounded the Beast for over 2 decades. The sight of Brock Lesnar lying motionless in a pool of his own blood while two younger predators stood over him like conquering warriors will haunt the wrestling world forever. The moment Bronson Reed's tsunami splash connected with Brock's chest, followed immediately by Bron Breakker's devastating spear, wasn't just a coordinated assault, it was a changing of the guard that signals the end of Brock's era of dominance and the beginning of something far more dangerous and unpredictable. You want to talk about shocking moments that rewrite wrestling history? This wasn't just unexpected, it was impossible according to everything we thought we knew about Brock Lesnar's supernatural ability to overcome any obstacle. The Beast, who conquered UFC champions, who dominated WWE main events, who seemed genuinely indestructible, just got taken out by two men who decided his time was over. The setup was so perfectly executed that it proves Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker had been planning this assassination for weeks. While everyone was focused on Brock's upcoming championship match, these two predators were studying his weaknesses, analyzing his patterns, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike like a pair of apex predators hunting the king of the jungle. But here's what makes this attack absolutely infuriating for Brock supporters: it was completely unprovoked. Brock hadn't done anything to either Reed or Breakker, hadn't interfered in their storylines, hadn't even acknowledged their existence. This was pure predatory violence from two men who decided to make their names by destroying a legend. The brutality of the assault was unlike anything we've seen in modern WWE. Bronson Reed's 300-plus pound frame crashing down on Brock's ribs with that tsunami splash created a sickening sound that echoed through the arena like bones breaking. Then Bron Breakker's spear, delivered with the fury of a man possessed, sent the Beast flying across the ring like a rag doll. Here's a question that's going to separate the real wrestling fans from the casual viewers: when was the last time you saw Brock Lesnar look genuinely afraid? Because that's exactly what we witnessed in those final moments before the attack. The most shocking aspect of this entire situation is how helpless Brock looked once the assault began. This is the same man who has dominated everyone from John Cena to Roman Reigns, who conquered The Undertaker at WrestleMania, who made UFC fighters tap out, and he was getting ragdolled by two men who weren't even main event players 6 months ago. Bronson Reed's sheer size advantage over Brock was something nobody had properly calculated. At over 330 pounds of solid muscle, Reed actually outweighs the Beast Incarnate, and when that massive frame came crashing down from the top rope, even Brock's legendary durability couldn't withstand the impact. The way his body crumpled under Reed's weight was genuinely disturbing to watch. But it was Bron Breakker's intensity that made this attack truly terrifying. The look in his eyes as he stalked Brock around the ring wasn't just aggression, it was pure hatred mixed with predatory instinct. This wasn't about making a name for himself, this was about destroying someone he genuinely wanted to hurt. The coordination between Reed and Breakker was absolutely perfect. While Reed was keeping Brock grounded with devastating power moves, Breakker was circling like a shark waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When that spear connected, it looked like Brock got hit by a freight train traveling at full speed. The medical response to the attack tells you everything you need to know about how serious this was. Paramedics rushed to the ring within minutes, Brock was stretchered out on a backboard, and the entire arena fell into stunned silence as they realized they had just witnessed something genuinely dangerous happen to wrestling's most indestructible superstar. Quick question for the longtime fans: do you think this attack was a shoot that went too far, or was it the most realistic worked beating in WWE history? The line between reality and storyline seemed to completely disappear. The backstage footage from after the attack is absolutely brutal. WWE officials were in complete panic mode, unsure whether they had just witnessed a legitimate assault or an incredibly realistic angle. The confusion and chaos behind the scenes proves that even management wasn't prepared for the level of violence that Reed and Breakker unleashed. But here's what makes this situation even more infuriating: neither Bronson Reed nor Bron Breakker showed even a hint of remorse for what they had done. While medical personnel were checking on Brock's condition, these two predators were celebrating their destruction like they had just accomplished something heroic instead of committing aggravated assault on live television. The post-attack interview with Reed and Breakker revealed the true depths of their calculated malice. Brock Lesnar has been holding back the next generation for too long, Breakker snarled into the camera. Someone had to step up and remove the roadblock, and we were happy to be the ones to end his reign of terror. Bronson Reed's comments were even more chilling: the Beast is dead, and we killed him. For years, everyone has been afraid of Brock Lesnar, walking on eggshells around him like he was some kind of untouchable god. Well, gods bleed just like everyone else, and we proved that tonight. The casualness with which they discussed potentially ending Brock's career was absolutely sickening. These aren't just ambitious young wrestlers trying to make names for themselves, these are genuine psychopaths who derive pleasure from inflicting pain on their colleagues. Here's another question for the comments section. Do you think Brock Lesnar will ever be the same after this attack, or have Reed and Breakker permanently damaged his aura of invincibility? The fan reaction to the attack has been absolutely explosive. Social media erupted with shock, outrage, and disbelief as wrestling fans around the world struggled to process what they had just witnessed. The hashtag #beatdown has been trending worldwide, with fans posting slow-motion replays of the most devastating moments. But the most disturbing fan reactions are coming from people who are actually celebrating Brock's destruction. Finally, someone put that part-timer in his place. One viral tweet read, "Reed and Breakker did what needed to be done." The bloodthirsty glee some fans are showing reveals just how much resentment had built up toward Brock's special treatment. The medical update on Brock's condition is absolutely terrifying. Initial reports suggest possible rib fractures from Reed's tsunami splash, potential concussion symptoms from Breakker's spear, and severe soft tissue damage throughout his torso. This wasn't just a wrestling beatdown, this was a legitimate medical emergency. The hospital footage shows Brock being wheeled into the emergency room on a stretcher, still unconscious from the attack. His wife and family members rushing to his bedside, doctors frantically running tests to determine the extent of his injuries. This is the reality of what happens when wrestling violence crosses the line into genuine assault. But perhaps the most shocking revelation came from the investigation into how Reed and Breakker coordinated their attack. Security footage shows them having secret meetings for weeks leading up to the assault, studying Brock's match footage, and actually practicing their coordinated strikes on training dummies. The premeditation involved in this attack elevates it from a spontaneous moment of violence to a calculated assassination attempt. These two men spent weeks planning exactly how to inflict maximum damage on Brock Lesnar, and they executed their plan with military precision. The WWE locker room's reaction to the attack has been absolutely divided. Some wrestlers are privately celebrating that someone finally humbled Brock, while others are genuinely concerned about the precedent this sets for workplace violence. If this is what happens to legends, what chance do the rest of us have? One anonymous wrestler reportedly asked. The most disturbing aspect of the locker room reaction is that several wrestlers have apparently approached Reed and Breakker asking to join their movement against established stars. The attack on Brock has inspired other young wrestlers to consider similar acts of violence against veterans they perceive as obstacles to their advancement. Here's a psychological question for the hardcore fans. Do you think Reed and Breakker's attack was motivated by genuine ambition, or are they exhibiting sociopathic tendencies that make them genuinely dangerous to be around? The investigation into the attack has revealed that both Reed and Breakker had been expressing frustration with their positions on the roster for months. Text messages and social media posts show them complaining about being held back by part-time legends who didn't deserve their spots. The attack on Brock was apparently their solution to perceived injustice. But the most infuriating discovery is that other WWE superstars were apparently aware that Reed and Breakker were planning something violent. Multiple wrestlers have admitted to investigators that they had heard rumors about a potential attack on Brock but chose not to report it to management because they didn't think they were serious. The failure of the locker room to prevent this attack makes every wrestler complicit in what happened to Brock Lesnar. These people knew violence was being planned and chose to stay silent because they either supported it or were too cowardly to intervene. The toxic culture this reveals is absolutely disgusting. The legal implications of this attack are staggering. Brock could file criminal charges for assault and battery, could sue WWE for failing to provide a safe work environment, and could potentially end both Reed and Breakker's careers with civil lawsuits. The fact that this attack was premeditated makes the legal consequences exponentially worse. But the most shocking development is that WWE management is reportedly considering whether to press charges themselves. The level of violence involved in the attack, combined with the premeditation and potential for serious injury, has executives questioning whether this crossed the line from wrestling entertainment into criminal behavior. The transformation of Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker from ambitious young wrestlers into genuine threats to their colleagues' safety represents a fundamental breakdown of professional wrestling's informal code of conduct. These men have proven they're willing to seriously injure their coworkers to advance their own careers. Here's a final question for the wrestling purists. Does this attack represent evolution in wrestling storytelling, or is it a dangerous precedent that threatens the safety of every performer in the industry? The ripple effects of this attack will be felt throughout the wrestling world for years to come. Every veteran wrestler now has to wonder if ambitious younger performers are studying their weaknesses and planning similar assaults. The trust and camaraderie that makes wrestling possible has been shattered by two men who chose violence over respect. The sight of Brock Lesnar, the most feared man in sports entertainment, being carried out on a stretcher has fundamentally altered the power dynamic in WWE. Reed and Breakker have proven that no one is untouchable, no reputation provides protection, and violence can overcome any amount of experience or accomplishment. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this entire situation is the precedent it sets for future conflicts. If young wrestlers believe that brutal attacks on legends are not only acceptable but necessary for career advancement, then every established star in WWE is now a potential target for assassination. The Beast has fallen, but the monsters who killed him are still loose in the wrestling world, and their taste for violence suggests that Brock Lesnar was just their first victim in what could become a campaign of terror against anyone they perceive as standing in their way.